Welcome to ClashCast. I'm HMB, the co-founder of Competitive Clash Network, along with being a previous team manager for Space Station Gaming and War and Glory. Our mission at ClashCast is to bring you, the Clash community, a bi-monthly podcast focusing on the competitive community, its teams, tournaments, and personalities. Over the course of the next year, we will host some of the biggest names in the Clash Esports scene, along with some of the more unknown players and teams that are up and coming. The goal is to shine a light on everyone that makes our amazing community the best it can be. Thank you for turning into episode 1, and I really hope you enjoy the show. All right, so the first topic of conversation this week was the 2022 World Championship. Obviously, unfortunately, I wasn't there in person, but Coco, you were, as well as Iron and Fluxxy, you were amazing on stage to be able to see this year. Coco, what was your experience being there this year compared to seeing it from 2019? And obviously, you got to experience Poland a little bit. What was the main differences you saw being live in Helsinki this year?
I think there was a lot more excitement involved because people were allowed to be there. People had met people that they've been speaking to for honestly years at that point, and I think it was a little bit of a relief because after everything that happened with COVID and all the restrictions and everything, and obviously this is a game that we all truly love. Just being able to see everyone there and all the action live, and I think that was just the major thing about the whole competition, that you got to see people and meet everyone whilst playing your favorite game. So, I mean, that's what a big difference was between ESL finals in Poland as well, because that was kind of restricted to who was there as well. A lot of community members came out to Finland.
Iron, what was your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked it. It was, yeah, interesting to see, like what they put up there. Like, I mean, it was Clash of Clans and Clash Royale, and it was like huge stage and so many people you kind of know or you've seen. Yeah, were there, and it's always great to basically meet people. For example, also Fluxxy. I mean, I met him in Katowice before, but that was like the second time basically we met each other, and it's always great to meet the people you played against or you played with. And yeah, the event was really nice to have like a main Clash event. To back in 2019, you mentioned it was like more like an undercard event, let's put it that way. And I think it was really awesome to have like a actual like Clash of Clans stage, and everything was Clash of Clans themed, so that was pretty epic.
All right, yeah, so Fluxy, you look like you were in the zone in every picture I saw the entire week there. You're just a very stoic look and just very locked in. Obviously, I was lucky enough to see you play in Poland. Did it feel any different to you to be up on the stage as opposed to being in the studio that was in Poland?
I mean, yeah, I think it was very different. Poland, even though it was my first offline event, it didn't really feel like it as much. Uh, there wasn't too much of a crowd. It wasn't specifically made for spectators. Whereas in Finland, everything was made for the spectators. Like they built the venue, so a lot more people. It's also like an actual stage with like chairs, which was very different. I think it was a lot more fun, but also a lot more stressful. So yeah, that's probably why I wasn't showing too many emotions throughout the event while playing at least.
And a question I have for you, which kind of was a little bit of a controversy within the community during and after, when you were on stage, were the noise canceling headphones enough, or was the crowd actually having some impact on
And
you being able to hear and the emotions you were feeling during your attack?
I would say most of the players could probably hear every word of the casters. And then if the crowd were like loud enough, then you would be able to hear it. Um, but you'd mainly not be able to hear the crowd, but I guess in like the final wars when it's a bit more hyped, you could hear
Hmm.
whenever someone like really shouted. But I'd say the more distracting thing would be the casters because they have to hype up the attack or whatever, and then you hear that they're saying how there's so much pressure on you, blah blah. Or if something goes wrong, they of course will mention it, and then
Hmm.
you don't really want to hear that when you're attacking. But it's just something you have to get on with, I guess. It's the same for everyone, so not too much to complain, I guess.
Iron, with you in the crowd and seeing the emotions going on, what was your take on the a crowd's effect with the live event as opposed to what you saw in Poland, which is more just of a studio atmosphere?
I mean, I really liked it, and I mean, you mentioned it. There was like some people like complaining a bit about some fans like being too loud, but I don't think that's a big issue. Honestly, I think that's how it should be. It's not like unfair if you cheer for your team, also if you cheer for defense. I mean, in every sport it is that way. Just look at football. I mean, the European football. Like people shout for their team, and they obviously support their team in every way possible. So I think it's completely fair if you cheer for your team all the way. And it was really great, honestly, to kind of see that, let's call it banter, maybe a little bit also between the teams. I mean, Bernal did the Neymar celebration, the tongue out, like this
Yeah.
kind of move, and then EXO did the same, and it's, I think that really adds like more like yeah, emotion to everything, and it's really fascinating. And yeah, so I think it's really great, and it should definitely be part of a tournament like that.
Yeah, I mean, watch somebody was just watching it from home, like seeing the emotions on stage and like seeing the crowd. Some people were shaking flags and like getting excited and screaming, and yelling. Like it was just awesome to see live Clash back again, and it's just something that we have not seen. And even in 2019, like you said, it was more of an undercard, where like it just felt like even from a spectator watching it at home that like Clash was back and like there was a lot of passion in the room, and it was really really exciting. And you know I have to agree with you, Iron. Like any professional sport you're in, whether it's soccer, tennis, baseball, anything where it may be, there's home fans, there's away fans. People are cheering for successes and failures. I didn't really personally think that it was anything that should cause alarm. I think it was just the passion of the fans that were in the crowd. Yeah, so I wanted to ask another question to Iron and Fluxxy. What was the preparation like at Worlds? Whereas, did you guys have your own area that you were able to do preparation in, like there was in Poland, or was it a little bit different than that scenario?
I
There
mean,
wasn't one actually.
I can like I will quickly go first. So for
Mm.
me, I mean, I was just there as a viewer, and I only got there on Saturday. So yeah, it was, I guess, not like I was not that involved. I was not allowed to go backstage or anything like that. I mean, it was the same for all teams. Like Stefan was also not like for Tribe, for example, was not allowed to be there. So yeah, I was pretty much just viewer at that point. Um, I mean, obviously, we like after the event and like when we got to the hotel, we could like work on stuff and try to prepare. But in the venues itself, it was not really like I was not able to go backstage or anything like that. So I guess Fluxxy is can tell a little bit more.
Yeah, so at the venue, generally we would get there a few hours early. Um, I guess just to be there. And each team had like a little tent, which you could walk into. It's like a table, some sofas. You could practice there basically. It was quite nice. There was close to the other teams, so you could hop in and talk a bit if they don't mind. Um, and then yeah, but there wasn't too much work really being done then because you kind of have to have your bases ready the day before or day before that. So most of the actual preparation work in terms of defense was done back in the hotel. So the teams would go somewhere in the lobby, or we had a spot like right at the back of the. So there was like a dining area. We would just go to the end, and there was like a, a few tables there where no one was, so we went there. It was a bit more quiet. Um, but I guess the if you wanted to practice offense a bit in the morning, then it would just be at the venue.
So, were you getting the team together in the morning, like at the hotel, like Steven and Kai were there helping you guys out, getting ready for the
Um,
day and last minute
not in
preparation type
the
things?
morning. Not in the morning. No, that was more like the night before stuff was all done. In the morning,
Gotcha.
it was a case of we had to get up early just to be at the venue in case anything went wrong for some reason. So I guess some people started doing their legend hits, as I think the Legends Day reset. In fact, we
Yeah.
were at the venue before the Legends Day reset, so that's how early we were there. So we would
Hmm.
get there, people would chill a bit, maybe have some breakfast, then start some legend hits. Some people did like the odd FC or something. It just depends how much you want to like, practice in the morning. Yeah, then we would have all wars.
Yeah, I mean, just one thing. Like Fluxxy mentioned that you could hear the casters, and like I mean, I also talked to Maxi and them, and what's really interesting that the casters basically had to think about what they are going to say to kind of not spot the players a little bit, I guess.
Really?
So that was actually like really really funny to hear the casters talk about it, how they have to like up how they comment also without like telling the players, oh, hey, I don't know, use a Coco loon, and then he uses a Coco loon, and it could seem a bit fishy. So that's why they kind of changed, like kind of had to adapt a little bit, and I think that's really interesting. That I mean, it's nice that the players could hear something, I guess, also because they can kind of feel the atmosphere. But that they could hear every word of the casters was also interesting and challenging, also for the casters.
Do you know if that was said at the start, or was that like after players had mentioned that you could hear stuff?
I mean, Maxi said basically players kind of told him, and then he was like, "Oh, maybe
Okay.
we should be a little bit more careful then." Something.
For somebody who wasn't there, how come you were able to hear the casters as a player, but in Poland you couldn't hear any of that? They were just kind of behind, like talking over the raid.
I would
Were they
say,
like? I mean,
It was a
if you were in noise canceling headphones, how come you could hear them?
I'd say in Poland the white noise was louder,
Hmm.
and also the casters weren't in the same room.
Yeah, that was the
Whereas
major
in Poland
difference.
you could hear like if they were really loud, but they had to really scream. Whereas here, they were in the same like area, I guess. It was quite far away, but still. And also, I think there was something to do with like the mics of the other players were picking up the noise. So it was just strange. It was something like you had to all be muted basically, but even then you could still hear a bit. So I'd say either noise cancelling was a bit less good, or not sure, because the white noise was less loud, and I guess something to do with the other mics of the players was very
Yeah,
strange.
I think it's the other mics probably which picked just up the
Yeah,
sound.
but there was nothing we could really do to fix it. Like I think every team tried, but we just couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they had different headsets. So when we were testing them out in Poland, I got told to try them just to see how well they actually work, and it's actually very very surprising. You can't hear anything with the headsets that ESL used. Obviously, I didn't get to test the ones that they used at Worlds, but on both areas there was obviously speakers that were producing all the sound, the gameplay sounds, as well as the casters. But to be honest, even if the casters were in the same room, it wouldn't have made much of a difference because it was all just going through these speakers. And there must have just been a better suppression on the headphones at ESL to stop this happening. But being able to hear everybody and everything that was happening is still crucial for everybody who was watching, even if the audience was way smaller in Poland. So yeah.
All right, so the next topic. Well, the road to the World Championship this year had 4 single golden ticket qualifiers, and obviously the in-game World qualifier that brought in the last 4 golden tickets. Kind of want to just kind of hit on each one of them and like what you thought maybe was a plus or a minus or could be improved going into 2023. The first one I'll start with was the original CoC. That was the one that X Team qualified for, and Peru Mania came in second. And it's slipping me who came in third. Maybe one of you guys can help me out on that. Who was it?
Strut, maybe?
I
No?
think it was us, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was you.
So the thing that I found to be very interesting about this is that this tournament had a huge variety in the payout. 30 if X team got 30K for getting the golden ticket, which just to give you an example on this is when MS Esports got it for Class Masters, they only got 10,000. So like when we were looking at the earnings for the year, X team was just riding across the top like most of the year because they had just a wide discrepancy for the first payout. which I'm glad they changed it for the other ones. I just found it to be very interesting that it went 30, 15, and 5, where many of the other ones were spread out much larger than that. Um, any take that you guys had? I mean, I know this is kind of a pushback. I mean, I would say this was the introduction of Swiss to the Clash of Clans scene. What was your thought about that as an addition to the tournament, Coco, from a streamer standpoint?
So from like a streamer's point of view, I think you see a lot in the chat that people don't like it when one of their favorite teams gets disqualified early, and by doing this Swiss format, it does allow them to make a mistake but then still recover from it, which was really nice to see, rather than, you follow a few different teams at the same time, and then all of them by accident made a mistake somewhere in there, and then you do go over to some of the underdogs teams, which is also really nice to see. But with the meta that we had at Town Hall 14, if you did make a mistake, that usually would cost you the war. So having that Swiss stage, having that, little safety bracket that these teams had was really nice. And by keeping a lot of the teams in a little bit later on through the bracket was also nice, so that you got a few different matchups as well. So you did get to see some new teams, as well as some really epic matchups from very popular teams.
Yeah, Aaron, what was your take on it? I mean, this was during the Super Drag meta that this tournament took place. Um, from what I remember, it just seemed like anyone could beat anyone then, and it was interesting to see 16 teams actually qualify as opposed to the 8 that we normally saw. What was your take on the first time that Swiss was introduced?
I mean, I like the Swiss format, or in general, I like it, I guess, if there's more wars. Because in the end, I think if there's like either like best of threes or best of twos or like a Swiss format, losers bracket, something like that, always makes it a little bit less random. And Ton of 14 was really, really random at times. Um, and yeah, I think that kind of helped. I mean, in the end, everyone can for sure say that kind of there were obviously surprises. Nobody expected X Team to make it, or like it was. I mean, they were pretty unknown at that point. I mean, you kind of heard the name before, but you didn't really see much of them before. So it was definitely, I would say, a big upset. And also Renegados, that they also got so far, it was also pretty surprising. I mean, they actually made it far again, also in later tournaments, so they definitely did well this year too. But yeah, it was definitely surprising to see some of the teams getting that far. Um, but yeah, in the end, I mean, I think we got third in that tournament. But yeah, I think it still was still a good format to be introduced. And I'm also glad that they introduced that pretty early in the year, and they kind of saw that it works and kind of kept going with using the Swiss format more often.
What was your take on that, looking from the outside looking in?
I think the Swiss format makes sense. Generally, the more wars, and as Ian said, it'll be generally the more wars that are played, the better team will come out at the end. I mean, it's nice that an upset's less likely to happen for like a big team to get knocked out. I believe you need to lose 3 wars to be out, which is quite a bit. So if you lose 3 wars, you definitely deserve to be out. I guess it can be a bit strange, since if you do come first, I believe it is, you have quite a big advantage. I think you only need to win like 1 or 2 wars. And I believe, I don't remember who it was exactly, but I feel one of the teams with the 3-0 record had like a free win. I think a team didn't show up. Then they played another team that was maybe
Yeah,
a
I
better
think
team
that's
than
when
them.
Queen Walkers had if somebody fall asleep, so they got a free win in
Yeah,
the.
so I think
Yeah.
one team ended up beating one established team, I guess you could say, and then they were instantly 3-0 record. So that's a bit interesting, but I think it's quite nice the way they did the last one as well. The 6 week thing, because that was also a Swiss stage, but there was some
Mhm.
double elips incorporated. So I'd say when it's quite a big route, it's quite nice.
Yeah, and I
But
think they did fix it for the 6 weeks of Clash because they did the reset, and you were correct. I believe X Team and Renegado's almost like got a free pass all the way to the finals with the original Swiss format, which was just it was way too heavy on the teams that were 3-0. And I will applaud Clash of Clans this year for looking at a few things and making changes and using the same format but with a better form with a better way of doing it when it came to the 6 weeks of Clash than they did earlier in the season. I would say one thing too that I saw this year that it was a nice addition to Clash of Clans is that in the past there was always these qualifiers where maybe 4 or maybe 8 teams were able to make it in, and I think that with the Swiss format bringing 16 teams in to the second stage, it did eliminate some of the randomness that the bracket draw brings into play when qualifying for any event that Supercells had in the past. You could have 2 or 3 of the top teams in the world in the same bracket when trying to qualify, and when you're doing 16 teams over 4 different qualifiers, the odds of that happening to the same teams over and over again become less and less. And I do applaud them for bringing that 16 teams into the Swiss side of it. And like everyone on this panel said, when you have to lose 2 or 3 wars to be eliminated, generally you're gonna come out with the better teams on top that should have made it through from the get go. All right, so the second format was the Clash Masters format, which it was very similar to what they did in 2021. I thought that was a good format. It was like individualized tournaments, and then you were able to qualify from that, and then move on into a group stage, and then the group stage you went into the final 4, which was the play-in for the golden ticket. The negative I saw on this, and maybe this is just me from speaking to all 3 of you across the pond, is the qualifiers were during the week, and for the people on the NA side, or even South America side, it's really difficult to be playing a golden ticket from your office at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday when you guys are able to play from your home or wherever it may be. And I understand that obviously Clash of Clans is a world game and there's going to be different time zones for everybody. This, however, was the only golden ticket event that had qualifiers that took place during the week. How does that affect you guys? Because obviously, I'm speaking from the NA side when we're playing from home, but obviously, some of those for you guys were 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and it's not like you guys don't have lives yourselves, where you're either at work or whether you're at school. I found it a little odd they did it during the week, but what was your take?
Well, just from a streamer's point of view, I remember a lot of the time because we didn't really know who was signed up or not until the minute of the first round, because that's when the bracket was really released during the qualifiers. And I remember people saying, "Oh, could we watch this team in the next round?" Now saying, "Oh, they haven't signed up." And I think that's exactly the same thing that you're kind of mentioning, that it's during the day, it's midday for me here in England, and a lot of people in Europe, it's midday, they're at work still. They also can't do it from the office or wherever they're at, which is a bit unfortunate when you are missing some of these teams. But overall, we still had loads and loads of teams participate in it, even though it was during the day. I'm not sure if they did do one which was a little bit of a later time, or if that may have been a different tournament that they did that, because this was something that I was trying to tell them, like, do qualifiers at different times, which might make it a little bit harder for like the playoff section, but if the playoff portion of it is on the weekend, you're still allowing for these teams to play in these wars for a time zone that suits them.
Yeah, there was a couple of them that were very early in the morning here, so it would have been like 4 a.m. here, which would have been 10 a.m. for you guys. So even then, that's great for maybe the Indian players and the Japanese and Korean players, but very difficult for European and NA and SA. I was just, like I said, and I'll repeat this, I was just shocked that they did a Worlds qualifier with events that were during the week while people were at school or working or sleeping. It seems, with every other event that they did, they all took place on the weekends. It was just a little interesting that this Clash Masters event decided to do that. Now, Fluxxy, you're still in school, correct? How did this work out for you having to play midday like that?
Yeah, so I think at the time of Clash Masters, I was at university, Well, it's interesting times. I guess I may have been ill a few days, but yeah, I think we kind of struggled with that. So I think all of us were at that time. All of us were at university, so we had lessons and stuff to go to, which aren't too easy to miss. And I feel like I don't know if we had our main five for any of the qualifiers actually, and I think it is a bit demotivating, just because it's not a case of you play one qualifier and you win it or you come top two and you're guaranteed. It's a case of there's 3 or 4 qualifiers and you have to do well in all of them to make sure you have enough points. So if you have one qualifier where you know that basically 2 of your players aren't available or someone's attacking on their phone in the train or something, it makes it a lot harder and a lot more stressful, I'd say, during the wars that you are playing because they do mean a bit more. And I think we didn't even make it. We didn't qualify at all to the next stage through any of the qualifiers. And yeah, that also puts a lot more pressure on the last chance qualifier. And that being added with, I think the meta at the time wasn't the most ideal. I can't remember if the super drags have been nerfed by then, but yeah, it was. I would say that was one of the toughest times of the season for Tribal League, trying to those early qualifiers.
How about you, Iron? I know that's a little bit of a flashback. Do you remember during Clash Masters?
I mean, I like, not so surprisingly, but we actually made it like pretty far in all of the 4 golden ticket qualifiers. And I know that it was like still quite a struggle with everyone to find time, because I mean, we also have people who studied, people who were in school, working, whatever. So it was definitely challenging and not ideal. And yeah, as you said, obviously for us it was still pretty, like, not that bad compared to other regions for sure. So yeah, it's definitely not ideal to have a big event, which as many people as possible probably should participate in, to have it midweek. So I think that was definitely not ideal. But about Clash Masters, I think they have one of the best like tournaments, like systems. I think like the qualifier system is pretty good. Um, like the point system was always quite fun to compete there. But yeah, the times were obviously, yeah, not less than ideal.
All right, I will move into ESL, which was probably the most most controversial of the qualifiers this year, being the fact that it was the first time that we actually had a golden ticket given to a regional champion. Yeah, in the past they had done the silver tickets, and there were some regional champions from that, but this was a straight up golden ticket for a regional winner. I'm sure there was people then in the South American and Asian community that were just beside themselves to see something like this happen. This was the qualifier that you guys came out of, and you guys played excellent in Poland. Congratulations, Iron. What was your take on about happy half of the community of Clash of Clans being left out of the golden ticket event, Coco?
It was very hard. As I said, from a streamer's point of view, you reach a lot of people, and sometimes people don't have a filter in chat, and they express their passion for their favorite teams quite openly. And as a streamer, you have to tell them it's not really up to me. I'm just streaming some of the like some of the matches that were on and stuff like that, or like afterwards it was completely unrelated. Would bring it up, but it is a bit. I mean, I agree with some of the statements that they made, because it is essentially 4 worlds, and we have a lot of really strong teams coming from these countries that are unfortunately not able to participate in it. I mean, I think it's a very big difference though, when you speak about Asia as a whole, but then when you think about specifically China, because that is something that even Supercell unfortunately can't change at the moment. Very unfortunate, but that's all up to the legal requirements of their own country. But it is sad to see that we are missing some of the favorite teams in there. I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning is behind it. I think people are speaking about it again for the current season, how signups are now open, but there still is no Asia signups. People do miss them in for sure.
I mean, it's not just Asia; it's also South America, for example, which is definitely also a big part. And yeah, I mean, for reasons, I guess the one and main reason is just like for ESL, they have sponsors in NA, and I mean, we can also talk about NA like now the new season. NA in Europe, obviously, it's also a discussion, but yeah, it's just I guess they don't have the sponsor in Asia or in South America, and I mean it's also other countries or like other places. Like I mean, also like Australia and whatever. Like all of that is just left out. So yeah, it's definitely less than ideal. I mean, if you compare it to other sports, I mean like for example, football, whatever, they have like basically like regional. You qualify, but then like every tournament is regional. But now here in Clash, it's like global qualifiers, and then there's like one regional qualifier. It's a bit odd. And it's also just like 3 regions. I mean, it was India, NA, and Europe. And yeah, it was definitely interesting. I mean, in the end, it's always nice to be there live on stage, like to go to a live event. So ESL is doing a great job there, but the all around, there's still like some questions for sure to be asked.
I was just saying I'm not sure what Brawl Stars have, because I'm not sure what regions they have for ESL.
Probably Fluxxy knows.
I mean, Brawl have a lot of regions, but that's for like everything. It's not just for ESL. So I understand the reasoning behind that, but I don't really like that for Clash, because in Brawl you basically have to be in the same region to play on the same team
Yeah, the
because
ping.
of ping. But like in Clash, you can have a team like Tompen last season where they have a European and SA player. Like you can have that, and it's fine. So if you were to do the same thing in Clash, you would split apart a few teams, and I don't like that. If it was just for ESL, I guess okay, but that's some logistical stuff. I don't really understand exactly what's behind that or why, but it just is how it is. I can say that I am very grateful that we had the offline event though. For the teams that could play, I think that was a very nice thing. For a
Yeah.
lot of us, it was the first ever, at least first in many years. So, I mean, if there's another offline event next year for ESL, I'll be very happy. Yeah, let's see.
There is one for NA coming up, so maybe you can cross the pond to check it out.
I'm not sure. If you want to sponsor me, I'm happy to do so.
Absolutely.
Top of it, and sure.
So, all right. Well, then I'll end on like the 6 weeks of Clash. This, luckily, Fluxxy and Iron were lucky enough to not play in the madness that was
Luckily,
the ELO. It felt like with this one, the rules changed as fast as they came out. They changed, and if you remember, I believe it started out you could do 8 wars a day.
Yeah.
And then it went to just as fast as you could get to 60 wars a day and complete it. This was and I'm gonna throw a stat out there, and then we can kind of go around the panel here. Of the 60 teams that qualified, there were only 5 wars that occurred between any of those 60 teams that qualified. I would have to say that Supercell was a little disappointed with how the ELO played out, because I think many of us, when we saw ladder, we were thinking, the ESL type of ladder when you may play a top team 3 or 4 times and you're just fighting it out to get in one of those top positions. And unfortunately, this seemed to be just whoever gets it to 60 wars fastest and hope to avoid any team that had any level of skill while doing it was half the battle and getting into the next round. Coco, as a streamer on this, I mean, I don't think anyone really covered the ladder. Is that correct?
I don't remember. I personally didn't. But I heard a lot in like my Discord server and talk about it on Twitter a lot. And yeah, you do see everyone was celebrating when you got to the 60 wars, and if you were fortunate enough to not get a loss in there, people started calculating it by the end who had 60 and then who had a few losses, and they were saying, okay, looks like we're gonna have to make sure that we spin at specific times and then try to avoid certain teams. And I feel like that kind of takes, like, they're just doing a guessing game really, but it kind of takes out the competition side of it, because some of the bases, some people that joined in, it is amazing that they had this opportunity to be a part of, but they were inexperienced, and that benefited the people who had experience so much. Some of them hadn't had war bases set from like Town Hall 12, if not even further away, which made it so much easier for teams that already had their bases set. So yeah.
I guess one thing to say, like, I like the idea a lot, but kind of the execution, like, I mean, the idea of like elo based is basically to take the luck factor away, but the way it was actually done, it just like was just about luck. Like, if you face queen walkers in the ladder, you're kind of screwed. That was the thing. And yeah, in the end, if you just faced, let's say, 60 no-name clans, or like 60 clans which, like Coco said, had like Tono, I don't know, 9, 8, whatever bases set, or didn't fill CCs. They didn't know, like, some people didn't know how to attack in a friendly war because they just cooked normal troops on the home base, and they were like, how do I hit now? Like, I went live, I only had my heroes, what's going on? Stuff like that. So yeah, it's I guess there could have been, like, in retrospect, it's always easy to say, obviously, but there could have been like better preparation for the people taking part. And then the elo was obviously not really doing the job it was supposed to do. It was, yeah, not really balanced, so there were a lot of clans facing other clans which just didn't really were on the same level. And yeah, that was definitely an issue.
I think the parameters were just too large for the elo, where like you would get up to, I don't know, I can't remember the point number, but you'd be up to like 2,000 points, and then you would match a team that had 1,200 points, and they would put up 3 stars, and it was a waste of your time. It was a waste of their time. And, I actually, was captaining War and Glory then, and we were left out of the top 64 with 55-5 record. But as you're looking around and you see what other teams are posting on Twitter, like I want to say the people that came in 55th were also 55-5, and Empire Gaming, who was 74th, was also 55-5. And it just came down to like luck of the draw. Like, did you get a team that gave you 44 points, or did you only get 40 points? And like, you get enough teams that were only 40 points, and it just started stacking against you because you were unfortunately drawing too far down on the elo ladder, and it just ended up hurting you in the long run, which again, I don't think was the intended outcome of Supercell when they were doing this. I think if they would tighten up those parameters, I think elo has a future in Clash of Clans, and I think elo has a future as a qualifier. I sometimes think that if they want to get 10,000 clans in there and get all the randoms in there, that's fantastic. Let's get people participating. But then let's also let those same clans be filtered out and be playing against the clans levels of, their same skill level, where they can still enjoy themselves and have fun playing, and not get run over by tribe or queen walkers or somebody who's out there that is just another level. It doesn't do anything for the pushing the game forward for a clan of that level to play a world-class team, and vice versa. But if they want to get everyone involved and make it a true elo and tighten it up, and then the top teams will have to fight it out with each other. So
Yeah, I think like, in general, like, if there's better elo, I think it definitely has like a potential to improve something, or like improve something like this. And then the other thing, I mean, you kind of also mentioned it, that there were a lot of clans like kinda missing out, but then there were like the topic with disqualifications. So then a lot of clans kind of got moved in again, which is sadly always like a topic in Clash. I guess there's some history behind it, which we don't have to get too much into now. But like obviously it's like really sad to see some clans like do like their 60 wars and then just get disqualified. And it sucks, but some of it you just can't really do much about it. And then there's also disqualifications which happen later on because of travels and whatever, and that's a whole nother topic. But it's definitely unfortunate to see that.
So I'll end with the Worlds on one last topic, and it's just kind of what you just brought up, Iron, was the disqualification aspect of it. I would say since 2019, since when they were qualifying through the Clan War League, and they were doing live events for qualifiers, our Clash brothers in India have kind of had a tough run at it. Unfortunately, like, with getting visas and being able to attend live events, even back then. And now that we're coming out of the pandemic and you're seeing more and more live events, we have to assume that this is just going to be something we're going to see going forward into 2023, unless Supercell can come up with something. What is your thought, Fluxxy, on Supercell having a regional qualifier just for the Indian community to give an opportunity for a clan to attend Worlds?
It's an interesting question. I'd say, if I'm honest, I don't like the idea. I mean, it's a shame how it was this year with them not being really able to. They didn't really have the chance of qualifying, other than for ESL.
Mm-hmm.
Say something like ESL is quite fair in terms of that is an opportunity. Granted, it's a lot less, but if you look back at the last 3 years, I can't recall any Indian team being necessarily close at all to qualifying for Worlds. So gifting one of the 8 tickets just to that part of the world, I'm a fan of. I feel like there is other regions that also couldn't really, qualify this year. It's hard to put fault at, some people will put fault at that specific place. This isn't really their fault, I would say. Some people placing that more at Supercell, but I mean, it's difficult. It's not really. I don't know really what could be done. I guess at least now that it's been highlighted more to Supercell, maybe they'll figure out some solution for next season. I'm sure they're very much more aware of it now than before. It seemed like the admins believed they could give enough information for them to get visas. I guess now that they know they can't, something probably has to be done differently. But a qualifier just for them, in terms of a gold ticket just for one region, especially when it's not even a continent, I would say it isn't the right to do.
So,
Yeah.
Iron, to piggyback off of what Fluxxy just said, do you think maybe a better solution is having more time between the actual qualifier and the World Championship to allow people from the Indian community to have a realistic opportunity to obtain a visa?
Yeah, I mean, now like with Ton of 15 dropping, I guess Supercell was also like on a time rush a little bit, or like time pressure, so they obviously wanted to get the Worlds done before Ton of 15 and whatever. But I think there's definitely more time needed between the last chance qualifier, like the last qualifier, and Worlds to just be able to manage those visas issue. I mean, in the end, it's like word against word, and probably both sides like could have somehow handled it better. Fluxxy said maybe there was also information missing from the admins. Maybe it was also the players just not like being or like doing what they needed for the visa. In the end, it's hard to tell. Like from just my like point of view, I was not there. I was not involved. But I think just more time would definitely make these issues easier to resolve. And so even if it's just 1 or 2 weeks, I think it's enough. But this time it was like really, really close time call, and I think that's kind of caused a lot of those issues.
I agree.
I think with some of the visa issues. For example, I'm pretty sure that some of the players from Marcos posted on Twitter, I think, and then they said that they got declined a visa, which means everything was done from the player's point of view, from ESL's point of view, but there was nothing that they could have done at that time. I don't know if extra time would have helped. I mean, obviously, more time would help in any situation, just to remove the time restraint that they have, so they don't have to be like, oh my gosh, we have to do it by Friday.
I think to add on that, I think why they got that denied was because they said there was information missing from Supercell. Like they needed like an invitation basically, and they didn't have that's I think that's kind of like connected to what you're talking to. Maybe I'm also wrong, but I think there was like some information, like they needed some invitation, something official to kind of show I'm going there with a purpose. I'm not just going there for whatever reason. And I think that was maybe the issue, or at least that's what I heard them say. But yeah, in the end, I think if you give them 1 or 2 more weeks, it can resolve a lot of issues. If people actually get their visa denied, then Supercell really can't do much about that, to be honest. I think then it's obviously unfortunate, but yeah, Supercell, it's also only has a certain certain amount of things they can do and try, and at some point it's also out of their hands.
I think a lot of people forget that Supercell or ESL, they don't want these things happening. They don't want people to be excluded and everything, and everybody gets very heated up in the moment, and they obviously, a lot of people like to point fingers and find someone to blame, but from being there and seeing how much effort and how much love that every single person in ESL put into the regional finals, you can see how much that when something goes wrong, they don't want it to go wrong. And I think because they're all very passionate about it, you can see how much of a success a lot of their tournaments are as well. So
yeah, exactly.
All right, so I'll move into the final topic of the show today, and it's going to be new teams for 2023. I'll start with you, Coco, because this has to be the most exciting time of the year as a streamer, that when teams match up, like you a little giddy to click to see who's in the lineup on the other side. Are you finding a new player on a new team? Is there something that somebody doesn't know out there that you're about to put onto your stream? And then also,
no, go finish.
and then, like, when you wake up in the morning, you stroll through Twitter, at least in the NA, because you guys have been awake for many hours ahead of us. Who's posting that they're a free agent? Who's posting they're retired? Who's maybe signed somewhere else? There's a lot of excitement that goes on, and right after World Championships, and probably the next 6 to 8 weeks afterwards, as new teams come together, old teams fall apart, new players emerge. It's just a really exciting time of the year. And as we're moving into this topic, Coco, what is it like for you as a streamer when you start seeing new matchups? And is there that sense of like, man, what am I going to see today?
So being a streamer right now, there's not a lot of leagues going on because everybody's updating their bases and everyone's trying to test, and everyone's making bases or testing the new troops, new sieges, and especially with the new update we've got, there is so much happening. There's a lot of changes going on. I mean, we've been doing some friendly wars, and we had 2 subs the other day in one of Tribe's teams, and they were like, oh my gosh, are these the new players for Tribe? I was like, no, they're just subs, it's just a friendly war. But this is kind of like everybody's watching everything, and everybody's trying to find out what's gonna happen. And I think that we've already had a few people who have retired, unfortunately, which is also sad to see. People have said that they're leaving their teams. There's some people who haven't announced yet where they're going. Everybody's guessing, and I think there's just a lot of excitement involved, and everyone just wants to know, because as like when we saw like Yo-Yo's post, for example, everybody was like, oh no, is Yo-Yo retiring? And or like, is he just leaving? And there's just like a lot of questioning about what's going to happen for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say that the day with Yo-Yo and Tryhard was a pretty big splash on Twitter, and I think Mask tweeted out like, "I swear to God, we're not disbanding." Like, it was just like one post after another. Like, what's going on with the Struck guys over there? But as we saw yesterday, they are a team. They are moving forward, and there's some teasers coming out. I guess we have a guy from Strut on this call here. So, Iron, what's your take on what's going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, we had we have roster changes. Yeah, I mean, it will be actually announced tomorrow. So it will be pretty much out the same as this basically podcast. So yeah, there was already a teaser. And I guess most you already know, because it was basically made like a competition to comment the first comment underneath the post with the new lineup, new players, new builder as well, will get $15. So obviously, some people who kind of know our accounts or maybe in the clan or whatever, they kind of had an idea. Funnily enough, actually, Ari is going to win those $15 because he knows how to spell Philip. Demo doesn't. So yeah, the new players are Philip from RPG. He's joining us. Yeah, he's German, and he actually wanted to join us already a year ago, but then the lineup was already full. So yeah, he's joining us now, and then the other player many people kind of assumed or knew is Hugo Stiglitz. I mean, a lot of people know him also from back in the day. Like he's one of like a very OG player. Was there with MCAS in 2019 at Worlds. So we played against him many times, and this time he's switching teams now. And yeah, then the last guy is Esk. He will be like yeah, I guess we will basically share the builder role. I will have more time this year than last year, but still not let's say enough to just fulfill this builder role on my own. So yeah, I think that's kind of the lineup we have now. So you could call it a 7-man team roster, I guess. Yeah, let's see. So far, like we talked a lot, and we spent some time farming together, which is always super fun. Farming is awesome. Um, but yeah, it's pretty nice, and obviously it's sad to see the team change. Like Yo-Yo and Tryhard are awesome people, awesome players. But I think a change like this can also be just beneficial for the team. Boom loves to make those like football comparisons, and there is like this kind of like saying for like team managers. They say like every 3-4 years a team should kind of change its core. Like not all the players, but teams always keep changing, and if you want to stay competitive, keep changing the players around the core every 3 or 4 years. And that's basically what we're doing, I guess. So I think will be interesting. I think other teams will definitely, for the start of the year, will have the target on their back. For example, Queenwalkers. For example, maybe also Tribe. So yeah, I think we have also a little bit less pressure, which can also be nice. So yeah, I'm excited.
So Fluxxy, on your side, and I don't expect you to leak anything from the tribe side until your roster comes out sometime in June of next year. But until then, were you surprised on the EXO retirement, or did you kind of have maybe a vibe going into this might be his last year going into the World Championships?
I'd say going into the World Championships, no one really knew anyone's plans. I think a few people expressed how they definitely want to continue. Some people didn't. It was kind of something we didn't really talk about. We were more focused on the Worlds, of course. Then after Worlds, there was immediately after there's more important things to focus on or enjoy. So it was kind of a case of once Worlds finishes, we see how we're feeling. We won't play any more Tower 14 stuff. And when Tower 15, we'll see how it goes. I'd say this year EXO didn't have too much time throughout the year. He obviously made time for like the important stuff, but there was quite a few wars where we did have to play with the 6th player. And then this year he's starting university. He'll have even less time, and I think it's just a decision that he felt like he had to make, or he wanted to make, because he's focusing on other stuff in his life right now, and doesn't want to, I guess, be forced to play when sometimes he's not available, or when there's someone else who can play instead. So
Sure.
I think it was just the smartest decision.
Yeah, I mean, if we all remember, Maxi stepped back for a certain period of time, then he came back and did another season. So I mean, maybe we'll see Exo down the line once his schedule comes back together. But it's totally understandable that real life is greater than Clash, especially if he's got a lot going on in that aspect of his life. A couple other players that are out there, because obviously there's been some changes. So I'm looking at this list that I have over here, and we have players like ND, Anno, LP. It's going to be real interesting to see the EU Mobile Open, and I've already kind of tweaked into some teams to see who signed up and what rosters there are. But like Iron, you just said you're going to see a new roster from Strut in that tournament. I'm assuming we'll see a new roster from Tribe in that tournament. We're going to see a new roster from CoC Esports. If you want to league, click in there and see who's registered for that team. And Time to Throw has some new players on there. It's just going to be really exciting, and it's unfortunate you guys don't have a LAN, but there's some new teams that are really going to be testing out the meta together and seeing what they have as we're going into 2023. What of those free agents I named out there, and we don't have to leak anything, but where do you see a player like Anno or ND ending up going into 2023? I mean, the skill level that they have, they're certainly not going to be on a no-name team.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a good chance that some of them actually team up. Just because there's not too many, let's say, like bigger teams looking for players right now, or at least not with like the same requirements those guys have. I mean, for example, there's like a German spot open in RPG because Philip left, but none of those obviously are German, so they're not really going to join RPG, for example. The Aphelion team kinda dissolved, I guess. So those players are kinda up for the taking. So I think it will be like I can see like a mix between the yeah Aphelion Esport team, the old Bazinga team. I can see some mix there, perhaps. That some people just are like, yeah, I mean, you have no team, I have no team. Let's make a team. Something like that. And yeah, I mean, with LP, it's interesting where he joins because I mean, last year he was not too. I mean, he played in one of those like Mutaba teams, but he didn't play that much. So yeah, it's interesting what's going to happen to him. I mean, 2019 world champion. After that, he was like in the like Nishang dance team with Fluxxy, for example, and then it kind of got a little bit, let's say, more quiet around him. So yeah, it will be interesting. There's a lot of players coming back. Michael, for example, they just announced the new team, Exalt Might, with like a lot of, let's say, OG players. I mean, Michael, Fed, those were like Team Kelso 2019 players. It's a really interesting team. I mean, not competing in ESL because South America is not involved. But yeah, it will be really interesting to see those players in their new teams.
Fluxxy, do you want to say? I guess since we're editing, yeah. But I mean, LP last year, I mean, was really interesting because he started out the season in King Mutaba, and then unfortunately with the Chinese split, he kind of found himself without a team for a little while, and then, as you know, Hannah Royal became Dr. M Squad, which at one point or another added him and ND to finish out the season, and LP kind of had I would say a lost year last year. I mean, as you hit on Iron, he didn't really have a home for a better part of the season, and the Dr. M Squad never seemed to be able to really get off the ground and accomplish what I think many people thought with the roster that they had over there.
I mean, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think they actually got disqualified from the last chance qualifier for, if I'm not mistaken, I think Vietnamese players are also not allowed to compete.
Yeah,
or
there was.
I don't know the exact reason, but I think they got disqualified for that. And I think after that it was game
They
over.
did have, I believe it was 2 players.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
try-
let them sub 2 players because that's
They
when
let them play as there
okay.
was. Basically, if you read the rules, it said something along the lines of, if you can't install Clash of Clans in your country, you
Yeah,
can't
okay.
play.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I think they specifically asked, and they were told it was fine, and then they came back and said it was not fine. And I guess because the admins made that mistake initially, they were allowed to sub the players.
And then
Mhm.
it didn't
Right.
pan out. Okay, I see.
Yeah, but it was just kind of I would have to say, and I think everyone would agree, kind of a lost year for LP. I mean, he was,
Yeah.
the Chinese server
don't-
thing, and then the Dr. M squad never really kind of got off the ground, unfortunately.
I don't know exactly what happened with him, but I believe he probably or must have signed a contract around the start of the year. So I guess he was kind of, I don't want to say stuck, but kind of forced to play in one of the Murtaba teams. I don't know if it was necessarily possible for him to leave. Perhaps it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you do have a contract and if it's continuing to go on the rest of the year, it might not make sense necessarily for you to join another team which perhaps doesn't have a contract. And then mid-season, it's always very hard to switch teams. Like, I think all the really established teams have their roster set. They have to believe in that 5, 6 players. So for them to make a change, it's very unlikely. And then the teams that do often make changes throughout the year aren't really the most stable of teams. So it wouldn't really make sense for him to go there. So I think from the start of the year, he was a bit unfortunate. If King Moitaba continued to play, who knows? They could have won it all. But
Yeah, that was
yeah.
a very good team. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, that's the end of the podcast for this week. And I guess next time we come around, we'll see what's going on with the space station team. We'll see what's going on with Tompanai now that Rigo has announced that is over with. I think the next couple of weeks, we're going to see some great teams announced. We're going to see some surprises. We're going to see some new free agents, maybe even a retirement or two. We'll see what happens over the next 2 weeks, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks.
Hopefully not too many retirements.
Yeah, hopefully not too many.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so let's just hit a little bit on Town Hall 15. I'm going to say the feature, and you tell me what you think about it. We'll start with you, Iron, the monolith.
I think it's great because Hero's been too strong, and yeah, the percent damage was a really great idea.
The spell towers, what do you think about those, Fluxxy?
I think they're a very interesting addition. I think they're very strong, but the fact that they can be zapped with like 4 zaps and a quake, it's something to be used against them. You can activate them with like a log launcher, for instance. So I think we have to see in the next weeks how people end up dealing with them and how strong they really are.
Iron, I'll double that question back to you as a builder. Do you like the versatility to be able to use rage poison and invisibility? And are you finding it more exciting to be able to build and do a little bit of more customization on something like this, where it's a different defense and it behaves very differently with different spells?
Yeah, as a builder, I really like the new toys. I guess Supercell gave us. It's really fun. And one thing I really like is basically the feature that you can see which like buildings get affected by the spare towers. I think that actually helps a lot to kind of get a feeling, get an understanding of what the towers can do. And yeah, I think it adds a lot, makes the game more fun, and yeah, I think it's a great addition.
All right, the new pets. I mean, this is an early one going on. The Town Hall 15's only been out a week. Some of the pro players are maxed out. Some of the players, like myself, I haven't even unlocked all 4 of them yet. Coco, for what you've seen so far as some of these things, I know you covered Rigo's tournament the other day. What have you seen so far from the new pets?
I think we haven't got an established combination yet. So like when you look at the Town Hall 14 pets, it was kind of obvious who, like, which hero gets paired up with what pet. And I think, I mean, as you can see, Klaus in that war, he even didn't reveal any secrets. He was using all Town Hall 14 pets, all Town Hall 14 troops and strategies. But you can see people are still testing stuff. But it looks like the Diggy is quite a favorite at the moment. People are talking about Diggy and Frosty a lot. But I think because people don't have them, well, some people don't have them all unlocked, but people don't have them all maxed. I think we will start to find the combinations once the players have them maxed and they're facing the actual like max defenses as well, because I think that will make a big difference in how that they will play.
Fluxxy, what have you seen in testing so far?
I haven't done too much because of how much farming needs to be done, but I'd say so far it's for me at least. I'm seeing the Diggy mostly on the RC. Watch those. The unicorn basically stayed on the queen. The lassie, a lot of people. I've seen some people saying it's the worst pet. I see some people saying they like it on the RC because it actually tanks, whereas something like the Frosty stays a bit behind, or the Diggy goes underground, so defenses can hit RC. I think that's nice though because on the World Champion, for instance, there's different use cases for the different pets. That's quite nice. It's not like a this is the best one, but I'm still trying to learn the other pets where they're good. I don't really know yet. I ask Melvin before every attack, where do I put this pet? Hopefully, at some point I'll figure that out. But it's so new now, so we need to just see how it goes.
I think
All
it's
right, the
really
next will be
nice.
the E.
Sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
was saying I think it's really
No, you
nice
go.
having more than 4 because
Yeah.
it kind of gives it quite the variety. So it's kind of like everybody knew where all the Town Hall 14 ones would go. Sometimes you'd have a little bit of a switcher, but generally like everybody knew what would be on what hero. But now having not even just an additional 1 or 2, we have an additional 4 which we can use. And I think you can see that we do have like the unicorn as a favorite from the Town Hall 14 pets, which is usually being used alongside some of the pets from Town Hall 15. But having so many makes it a little bit unpredictable what they're going to do. So.
And I think it's also a nice addition to the game where they didn't have to add another hero, but they were able to add some versatility to the hero lineup of what you can and can't do. So,
Yeah.
All right, so the next one, E-Titans. I have to say, when Itsu dropped that video of him just destroying every base with mass E-Titans, I was like, oh my gosh, here we go again. But as they've come out and you're seeing against real bases, it doesn't seem to be as overpowering as we initially had thought when Itsu blew my mind with that video he had out. So what is your take so far on the E-Titan Iron?
I mean, I really like the troop. I also really like the troop idea. I guess it's like inspired by the Electro Giant from Clash Royale, same principle. And I think it's really cool with like the, let's say, damage aura around the E-Titans. And yeah, it's a strong troop, but it's not broken, so I like it.
Fluxxy, what's your take on that E-Titan?
I like it a lot as well. I think there's different use cases. I do think it's strong, but not too strong, which is nice. I think you can pair it up with a lot of. If you're doing a smash attack, you can choose. You can add it to super witches, super bowlers. You can do it by itself. You can do mass E-Titans. You could add it to a Sui, for instance. I've seen some players when they know the CC will be lured, just put it on top of their queen, and then the hound is gone, and then it also helps with the Sui as well. So, the hero dive. But yeah, I think it's quite a nice troop. It's a nice addition. It's something different.
All right, so the next one is one I haven't seen much of yet, is the new Siege. I did watch the Rigo tournament the other day, and I don't think anyone even tried the new Siege out. Coco, what have you seen? Have you seen Money Wars yet where people have tried it out, and what kind of strategies are they using with it?
So surprisingly, I haven't actually seen a lot of the new Siege. I think in that whole tournament, I think it only came up once, I think. But Itsu does a lot of different Legend League attacks, and he's been using it quite a bit where I've been watching it. And if you use it like alongside like a hybrid, sometimes it doesn't even pop. Like sometimes it doesn't even open. It stays as the Siege until the very end, which is quite overpowering. So I'm kind of surprised that Itsu has managed to find a way to incorporate that into his attacks and for it to be so overpowered. But we haven't seen some of the other pro players in the scene do the same, which I think is quite interesting. Is it just because of the specific bases that he's currently finding, or is it because everybody's like Legends is a bit different now because we've got a lot of people farming and not many of the defenses are maxed? I think this is something that we have to kind of keep an eye on. But obviously in Legend League it's doing pretty well, but it's just a question why people aren't really using it too much in friendly wars or in the small competition that we saw last week.
Iron, with you doing some building, I'm sure you've had some of your guys testing with that Siege machine. What is your take on it so far?
I mean, I think it's great with hybrid or with Smash. But yeah, it's like kind of too early to tell. But I think it's pretty strong. Like the stun is pretty nice. So I think we will definitely see more of it.
All right, the next one, which I think is one of the more interesting aspects of Town Hall 15, is the recall spell. I mean, it just gives so much versatility and crazy things you can do for an opener, then bring it back. I think somebody recalled a bat spell the other day that I saw on a Carbon video that was just insane. So what have you guys seen so far, Fluxxy? Have you had a chance to mess around with the recall spell yet?
I haven't used it personally. I have seen some people do like Warden Blizzards. They'll drop like their Warden NRC and like recall it. I know in one of the, I think what the update videos where they mentioned the recall spell, one of the YouTubers showed a hit where someone did a hero dive of their king. I think it was King Queen NRC. Then they recalled the Queen NRC from the compartment, sent them to the town hall. So they got different areas of the base. I've seen some people do like far side smash attacks, and then when their troops are about to go into poison, recall them and then put them on the outside so they avoid the tower poison. There's a lot of interesting ideas. I do think it's quite expensive to use because you didn't get an extra spell at all if in this update, and you often need a few extra spells to counter something like the monolith or the spell towers. So it's quite a big investment. So I think you have to use it really well. The start, people probably thought it was too strong, but it also seems like quite a high skill cap spell to use. Probably something I won't be using too much myself, but it's definitely interesting to see what people can come up with, especially the crazy attackers.
Was that a self roast there?
I just like
Just a casual self roast.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Skelly Donut. It was super strong. And let's see how it will be in this meta. We don't know with this in this towers, but I know for myself, I'm not touching the Skelly Donut, especially at a high pressure situation. There's not a chance. So yeah,
about the recall spell, I think you also you have to be precise to actually hit every troop and every hero. Otherwise, you kind of they just wasted a spell. And I think we will see some interesting stuff with it. But I think I agree with Fluxxy. It's a high skill cap thing, and can be strong in the right cases, but it's also not broken. So I like it.
Cool. All right, so then the early meta. What are you seeing on the early meta now, and how do you think it may develop? Start with you, Coco.
We've definitely moved away from the air spam quite a bit. Even though we did see Klaus triple with it on Town Hall 15 base. But yeah, we've definitely moved over back onto ground attacks and like smash attacks. I've actually seen a lot of super archers being used alongside smash attack, even with the new Electro Titans as well, which is actually quite interesting to see. And I feel like it's a bit more it feels more creative because we don't see the same attacks. Usually when we watch a war, we do see quite a variety or very similar attacks, but they have their own twist to it. And I think that's just because we have a lot of options at the moment, which the players are picking depending on each individual bases, including like, for example, the pets are always different. I feel like we're having, instead of like a safe blimp, we're now having safe wreckers because they don't want to be sending a blimp into that town hall compartment anymore, and they want to open some additional walls as well. So I kind of like the transition that we have. You can see some trends from 14 that are being twisted to see how it works with Town Hall 15, as well as some new stuff.
Iron, what's your take in the early meta?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the meta. It's hard again. Every triple feels really rewarding and is absolutely awesome. And I really like the meta. I think, I mean, it's really early now, so I think in the next couple of weeks or month, a lot of stuff will get like discovered. Yeah, new ways of hitting, new ways of planning. But I think like one big thing which this update adds is that you, let's say, have to really think about your plan, and the plans actually have to be good. And that's actually a bit of a thing about Ton of 14. That was not the case about Ton of 14. You could just do whatever basically, as long as you didn't do completely like horrific mistakes, you would triple almost. But yeah, I really like the meta. It will be really interesting. It's really interesting what we base builders come up with. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are now getting back in base building. They're like, yeah, I can do that. Ton of 15 looks like ton of base building is more fun again than compared to ton of 14. So I think it's a great meta change, and I really like it.
And Fluxxy, we'll close with you. What is your take so far on the meta? I know you're in the farm mode, but what are you
Yeah,
seeing?
I'm definitely enjoying it. I think for the competitive scene, it's very good. You can see like the difference now between the different types of competitive scene. I think for base builders, it's amazing. Um, Being able to play with these new defenses, all the different modes, so many different ideas you can choose. Will people be putting invis towers near town hall CC? Do they like the idea of a poison tower? I've seen some people complaining about in Legends when they're hitting a stacked base with rage towers, the hybrid just dies, the heal isn't enough. So we have no idea which towers will be used most. We have no idea what strategies people will be using. So it's very exciting for the start, and hopefully it stays like this for a while. And once we see how Tower 15 really is, we'll see what changes are needed. But at the moment, it's very positive, especially for like a competitive player.
Yeah, and I'll say as a manager too, like just watching events now where 12 and 13 stars are winning wars, like, I'm okay with my team losing a fair fought war, but when you were losing wars 15, 15, 14, 14, and Coco's out there keeping track of time to see what the tiebreaker may be, like this new meta is really just, may the best clan win, may the highest skill cap win. Let's take time out of this game, and like let's just keep the meta the way it is right now as long as possible. And long live 12 and 13 star wins. I'd love to see it.
Two-star win wars.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, thank you guys all for coming on, and I really appreciate your time today. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.